Okay, Councilor Kim.
Great, thanks everybody. So the time is 7:04 p.m. on Wednesday, September 6th, 2023, and I'd like to call this Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting to order. We'll start with a land acknowledgement. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Okay, that said, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by our Legislative Services team? Okay. Is that Greg there? Sorry, it's everyone's a little bit distant.
Peter.
Yes, sorry, Peter.
Oh, Peter. There's Peter.
Joanne.
And Joanne, seconded. Okay, so we'll call the any questions or comments on the agenda? Nope. So I'll call the vote. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? None. Okay, we'll have the receipt of the minutes. May I please have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of June 7th of 2023?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Peter again and Joanne. Call the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and no one opposes, that carries. So we don't have any delegations this evening. So move on to the first item on the agenda, 7.1, regarding site plan application SP 2023-08, 90 Engelhard Drive. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Dawn, and then Joanne. Okay, anyone would like to speak on this item? Is staff introducing this at all?
Yep. I'm just pulling it up. All right. So first I'll go through all the comments that were on the agenda, and then we'll kind of we'll go through again the plan in further detail, and then should anyone have any additions or questions, we can add that to our comments at the end. Okay, so the comments and conditions that have been submitted. We have a one-passenger elevator for each level, including the mezzanines in the multiple stories, installation of the tactile indicators at the staircases, automatic door openers at all public access locations, installation of appropriate accessible curb ramps where the path of travel crosses the curb. And then I made a comment that on the one site plan, there wasn't any visible ramp shown specifically. Exterior path of travel to be a minimum of 1,500 millimeters, 1.5 meters. The bike rack, so there's a bike rack on the plan. So just ensuring that that does not block the path of travel. And then if there is a washroom on the main level, that it is serves as a barrier-free path of travel, and it is a universal washroom. The only other two considerations are emergency evacuation chairs at all staircases and consideration for the customer service counter have an accessibility spot and induction loop. So on our plan, let's zoom in a little. We will talk. So parking does meet requirements. We do have the 2 spots at the front entrance here, as well as the 2 on the opposite side. The entrance, so this is the curb ramp that I mentioned. Right over here, that does not appear visible, so commenting on that. As well, there is no dimensions on the sidewalk leading into the entrance. There is a bike rack here of 6 spaces. So there is the comment on ensuring the bike rack does not impede on path of travel. I would have to assume this access aisle has a curb ramp there, which would be right into the bike rack. Okay. Entrances here. This is an existing building.
You're gonna tell us when we can say something about this?
Yeah, so I'll go through all the comments, all the pages, and then we'll ask for additional comments. So the plan, so this is an existing building already. So I am commenting on existing features through this site plan. The expansion is out the back and down here on the side, which appears to have a loading dock out the side here. Second image is just a little clearer. So this is more of a landscape drawing, so we could see where trees and architecture is around the path. So there are bushes along the sidewalk leading into the front entrance. And then the next few are just the elevations and the view around the building. So we do have the existing front here and then the expansion way in the back of both sides, east and west, north and south. So these are, again, the yellow is what's existing, and then the gray is what's additional. Now, these are the different levels. So I did take out the other levels, but these 2 are basically what's relevant. Everything shaded here is existing. There is a doorway out here to the proposed warehouse area that they're adding. So we do have staircases out the back, emergency staircases. But again, we are commenting on the existing areas because this plan is, well, coming across the desk. Here is, sorry, let me zoom out. The mezzanine area. So this is the second level where we are recommending that elevator to access that second level. Again, it looks like there's an office, lunchroom, washrooms that will be in this additional space. So that recommendation or that requirement to add a second story elevator of some sort to access this level. And that is it.
Okay, thanks very much, Greg. Any comments or questions?
Yes, I have some.
Sure, go ahead, Joanne.
I'm just questioning the 1 passenger elevator. Church that we have the Voices of Joy in, which people have their challenges. Sometimes they're in a wheelchair, sometimes they're not, and everything like that. They put a very small, efficient elevator into this church right by the door for us to get into. But the thing is, in some instances, whether the person may have an extended leg or something like that, they have to be looked after. They have to have somebody with them. And, you know, it could be a stiffened leg, a surgical leg, it can be anything. And we've run into this now because how do you put somebody on the elevator and send them somewhere when they don't know what the heck where they're going? I mean, some of them might be as bright as anything, but it's still scary.
Further to your point is, a lot of people don't have that mobility to say,
I know.
hit the buttons.
I know, and that's the thing. The thing is that this elevator they put in is really good for us. I mean, you hold on to the key, and as long as you hold on to it, it runs, you know, but these people can't, they can't do that.
Yeah.
And, but if you put an elevator in and you only have one person in it, I think it's really taking a chance. I mean, I've worked with the Voices of Joy for 25 years, and I was at the Crippled Children's Center before that. And, you know, it's just a question that really concerns me.
Do you remember the elevator at the Family Leisure Complex?
Yes,
The inverted casket?
yes.
I won't say anything else.
And the other thing I have a question about is, I've noticed that lately when they're doing spacing for cars and whatever to park, some of the places, like at the senior center, for instance, there's a really wide space on the right side of the front door. And on the left side, there's a very narrow space. So when the second car pulls up, it blocks the ramp totally. You know, there's no thought being given to it. And I just don't get it. And then in most cases, a lot of the people, some of the people are challenged that are even driving, but the ramps always, and in a lot of cases, they're on the passenger side, which you can see from getting a wheelchair out or whatever you need to do. But there's some, you know, there's some things that I think need to be looked into.
So through you, Mr. Chair, to the comment of the one passenger elevator, John, as you mentioned, the Aurora Family Leisure Complex would be that example, which we did manage to get 3 of us into that elevator, one in a quite large wheelchair. So when we talk about one passenger, there is a minimum requirement for that size. You can fit more than one person in it, which is called a one passenger elevator. We can absolutely recommend larger. This is a 200 square meter office space that we're talking about here.
Well, I mean, if you feel it fits somebody, that's fine, but I don't think in the wording, one passenger elevator should be the word. Appropriate elevator.
That's the wording
I
in
know,
the
but
act. So
I know, but
that's the wording we are proposing. Right now, there's nothing.
I mean, somebody else could come to a meeting, look it up and say, what did you order that elevator for? It's not the right elevator.
So, I mean, we can definitely just remove one passenger and just say elevator shall serve at each level. That's definitely something we can do, but the wording
As long
is,
as we're not blocking somebody.
we can definitely do that. As for the parking, I mean, that's not related to this plan. However, it has been identified, noted, and will be corrected at
You're
some point.
talking about curb ramps, so they're 2 down from there, 3 down from there.
Yeah, you were mentioning the Aurora Family Leisure, the senior center.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if no matter where you put a curb ramp,
Yeah.
thought has to be given into it. You just don't do one way and another one another way.
Yeah. So back on the first image here, as we go back, I'll zoom in. So my question, again, the comment here is right over here. I'll zoom in even further, so we could see it. So this gray, purple is the driveway, and then the gray here is the sidewalk that leads from the driveway up towards the front door. This hash mark here is the access aisle between the barrier-free parking space. None of this is showing a curb ramp. So the comment here is it's not clear from this plan where the curb ramps are, and anytime travel is crossing over a ramp, that curb ramp should be there,
Yeah.
which would be in those 2 locations. So we'll see when they.
Accessibility. You have to give accessibility. That's what I feel. You know, it's not something to talk about and then not do it.
Right. And again, as I commented earlier, this is an existing space. The plan is really for the back of the building.
Yeah.
So some of the comments here may or may not be addressed because of the existing space, but we'll see.
Just had a question around the expansion building. Is it the same business or is this a separate business?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it appears to be the same business.
Oh.
I don't have that detail. There is a door leading from the existing building out the back.
Okay. The reason I was asking is just the location of the accessible spaces. Like if it's a separate business at the back, there's no really nearby one to access I guess the closest one would be the one you were just mentioning there.
Yeah.
I wonder, I mean, it does look like it's some sort of production floor.
It says exit up here and
Right.
exit here.
Yeah.
So those aren't entrances, so it has to be the same building.
Okay, Allison?
Greg, I think you know this well. What's the requirement? Like, I know that there's loopholes when a business is doing a renovation about bringing existing spaces up to code. So to that point, would the recommendations on the existing space have to be sort of brought up to AODA because of the size and scope of the expansion?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the standard is any large renovation or retrofit requires AODA compliance because they're not changing or adjusting the existing building. They're only adding to the back. Theoretically, technically, AODA standards must be applied to the new expansion area. However, I always comment on existing areas as well. No matter how major or minor, I will comment to bring any building up to standard, regardless of if it's existing, if it's meeting requirements or not. I will comment on it and I will allow them to basically comment back should they do it or not.
Thank you.
So in this case, the path of travel may or may not have a curb ramp. They may or may not put it in because it is an existing path of travel. However, I typically stick to my guns and will work with them, the developer, to ensure these are met as best as we can.
Thanks, Greg. Any other great comments so far, and any questions? Okay, if not, then I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, so that passes. Moving to 7.2. Site plan application SP 2023-09 submission 161 Aurora Boulevard. Can I have someone move this in a seconder, please? Okay, Allison and Dawn. Thank you. So I'll pass it back to Greg to give us the intro.
Ready.
So just say where you are because I didn't quite hear where he was going.
SP 2023-09.
Is it on here? This one?
7.2.
I'll get it. Don't worry.
Ready. So again, comments on this unit, and then we'll go through the plans, and then I will open it up for additional comments. Just a few here. Washroom on the main level, again, barrier-free path of travel and universal. Installation of proper tactile indicators at the staircases and automatic door openers on all public access locations. And then considerations for evacuation chair and customer service counters with accessibility spots and induction loops. So those are the comments here. Go into a little more detail. So we do have our barrier-free spots here that do meet this standard. And then, so we do have the curb ramp here that is visible. There is what appears to be a main lobby here that does cross into the units. So I don't know if these units are separate units or subdivided. It does appear to have different entrances or exits. It's just not very clear. Oops, next page. This is the, again, the different level views. There's no colors on these ones, but one angle, these are storage, or sorry, shipping doors that come through. And we have the front, so we have multiple signage, multiple doors, side of the building, and then our different levels here. So again, these are all the main levels. Mechanical room, there is an elevator here that goes up to the second level by the lobby area where our accessible spots are. So up the ramp, straight into the door, or around the corner into the door, and then into the elevator up. And then we have multiple units that have entrances on the outside here. And then this is a second level, which once you come up the elevator, you do enter one of these two doors, either the one unit, which is quite large, C5 here, or the one unit, again, quite large is C4. So it looks like there's multiple units. There is a doorway through the staircase here. And this does appear to be an evacuation chair, although I commented on it. I think that's what that is. And then there's the mezzanine area here. So that is it for this plan.
Thank you, Greg. Any comments on questions on this item, please? Let's start off, Greg. So if there's only one entrance to the side there with the visible ramp and separate units, where are the ramps for each individual units with the entrance? Should there not be a ramp for each unit?
Now that existing concrete sidewalk, so it looks like there's an entrance on the sidewalk here. I don't know if that's visible on your end, right here.
Yeah,
So
I see
it
that.
looks like the parking, you go to the sidewalk and then you enter through here. And then same with down these units. On the other site plan, these arrows here are entrances on the other plan, which is a driveway. So maybe these are exits on the other plan, not entrances. And then the upstairs unit would be 4 and 5. So yeah, it looks like just the sidewalk.
Okay, so that pathway from the sidewalk to each individual unit, that's a ramp? We can assume there's a ramp there?
I would have to assume they're flush, yeah.
Okay.
I'll add a comment to clarify that because it's not clear from any of the drawings. This is what we would be looking at. So the sidewalk would be in front of us, and then entrance, and entrance would be there. So I'll just ensure that entrances are flush.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hey, Greg, I don't want to assume, but I don't see locations of washrooms and whether they're accessible. I don't want to assume anything, but are they accessibility washrooms?
Upstairs. So Typically, washrooms do appear at a building permit process. So I do comment, and I have commented that a washroom on the main level that is served as a barrier-free path of travel and available to public to be universal, which is currently not on either of the plans. So this is that front corridor entrance. However, overall, almost all the plans that have been submitted, usually the washroom and the washroom location is at a building permit stage, which we don't see. So I do ensure that I comment on it so that when it does get to that stage, they are aware. And 9 times out of 10, I usually get a comment back saying, noted, we'll do it later, or this is a building permit application, it'll be done at that point.
Okay, understand.
So again, I don't know what's in these units, right? I would have to think each unit would probably have their own washroom if they are separate. At which point the comment still exists. Every unit should be barrier-free and universal.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the group? Okay. Hearing none, call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Moving along to 7.3. The application on 55 Eric T. Smith Way. Can I have a mover and a seconder on that one, please?
Haley,
Okay, Haley, thank you, and Allison seconds it. Greg, you have the floor.
All right. So this time we'll start with a little more color. So comments, again, conditions that must be met. If there's a washroom, again, ensure on the main level served as barrier-free path of travel and available to the public. Installation of proper tactile indicators at the staircases, automatic door openers at every entrance, and the exterior path of travel to again be 15 or 1.5 meters at a minimum. Also considering one comment for consideration, spreading out the barrier-free parking spots to ensure shortest possible accessible route to the barrier-free entrances. So recommending 2 spots by office 3 and 4, 2 spots by unit 8 and 9, and 2 spots by unit 14 and 15. So we'll see that in a second. So again, here is the look of the building. So there will be multiple units around the building here. Here is again, the side view of the building. More of the schematics or the mock-up at this point. So loading docks out the back. There are some emergency exits with stairs in the back. And then here, we'll get into more detail. So currently they do have 2 spots on the north side, one side, 2 spots on the other side, which would service office 1 through 6. But then as we look down through all of these units, so unit 4, come on, straight down to 16, there is only 2 barrier-free spots right in the middle here. So again, the recommendation is, or the consideration at this point, is to spread these spots around, to have office 3 and 4, just so put 2 spots kind of in the middle here, which would service 1 through 6, moving these 2 spaces over the corner, putting them at 8 or 9. So somewhere here, so we can service again unit 4 through to 12 even, and then moving these 2 spaces down further to either 14 or 15, wherever it fits best. Again, service probably 11 through to 16. So just more of that consideration. They do meet the requirements with those 6 spaces. However, the consideration here is separate them further to provide a little more access. They may have done it on purpose, I don't know. Units may be more industrial versus the offices may be more medical, I don't know. So we'll wait to see what their comments are back. Again, path of travel, there's no dimensions here, so just ensuring that it does meet the 1.5 meters. These are typically lights or signs, these little circles with lines on them. So again, to ensure they're not impeding on path travel. And again, we don't see what's in these levels. Again, so this is more of the landscape drawings. Zoom out here so you can see the big picture. So offices up top, the different units down the side here with loading areas down here. So this is the ground level. They're all just open units at this point. And so again, comments on if there is washrooms, again, to make sure they are accessible. And that's it.
Thank you, Greg. Any questions or comments on this one, please?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question, please.
Sure, Joy.
When we are looking at these parking spots, and I know we've made errors in the past where they've been across the driveway and not at the building. How many, do we really give consideration to the amount of spaces that are there and the amount of traffic that's there for the amount of places that we put in for individuals that have a problem? I mean, also one of the other things I think about right now is our population is aging so, and there's far more people with canes, walkers, things like that. And so if these places are enough to can attract them for some reason, I don't know, is that enough spaces for the amount of parking that's there?
Great.
So through you, Mr. Chair, so the AODA does have a minimum requirement and there is calculation. So that is the parking requirements that it is based on the total amount. So if it's 13 to 100 spaces, it's 4% of the total, rounded up to the nearest whole number. So 3.1 spaces means we're putting 4 spaces in. So there is a minimum requirement with the accessibility standards. However, in saying that, we only see a building that has walls on it. We don't know what's going in these buildings at this point. If they are all medical, there would be consideration on their end, and the tenants would be coming in to ensure that they are accessible. We at this point just don't know what's going in there. The builders of these buildings may not even know who's going in there yet. So that would be a process that happens down the road. It could be industrial. They could resubmit to change the use. It could be a variance. It could be a bylaw amendment. So at this point, all we see, for lack of a better word, it's 4 walls that are all subdivided. So we have to.
You've already heard something about some medical things going in there?
So these buildings, we don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah, so it'll all depend. These applicants are applying to basically build a building. Once that gets built, the owners typically will then lease out or at that point. So we don't know who's going in any of these units yet.
I just find a lot of these places so large and so much stuff, and accessibility issues are a lost cause as far as I'm concerned when I look at them.
So the on that note, which is a little off topic, but on that note, the design of public spaces portion of the AODA is currently being reviewed. It has been submitted. A draft has come back to the committee for review from the provincial government. They are hoping to review this in the next month or two, and then we'll be providing this out for feedback So once that happens, I can definitely share the updates and changes of the design of public spaces that have been proposed as an update to the AODA. In my understanding, parking is one of those items to shrink the percentages, which will therefore increase the number of spaces
Every
required.
day to me, we're accepting more things about accessibility and including them, which we should do. And and it's growing and growing and growing. And then to me, some of the things aren't going up the way they should either.
Yeah.
So.
Just another comment,
Mhm.
It's John, by the way. The perimeter walkway, or sidewalks in front of the units, 1.5 meters,
That's a minimum, yeah.
that's the minimum. What do we have on this site plan? Because always worried about planter boxes, and sandwich board signs and so on.
So at this point, it's not listed. So this is, they just have the 8.1 meters from wall to wall, but not how wide the sidewalk is. So again, the minimum, it is a minimum clear width, which means if there are obstructions, and usually when applicants do comment on that, yes, it is 1.5, and I do physically see obstructions, I will re-comment and say, okay, but consider opening doors and planters and anything else that I might see on a plan to say that it should be 1.5 from there.
Thank you, John. Allison, I guess you were going to say the same thing?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the planters, Greg, and I wonder, do you take it a step further and say, if you don't see planters or things, that they consider that, because it might not be on their building plans, but it might be an addition later? I think you would. And then to Joanne's point, but you sort of addressed it around the AODA review stage. And I was just going to comment that what I find tricky about us navigating all of these is you keep us on point about AODA, and it's really not the town's responsibility to, or I say it's not, we don't have the ability to override what is a provincial mandate, which is the frustration. So even if we want things to be better or more accessible, you're following the rule, but I'm happy to hear that some of those are under review. So I was just going to comment on where our committee stood on advocating outside of looking at these. Like, would that be a special project where we could advocate or present at anything outside of ourselves to change mandates? Same thing with parks, right? I don't like wood chips, but wood chips are an approved surface. So until the approved surface list changes, we will keep using wood chips. So I guess it was just that question of where are we allowed to have special projects around advocating for that level of change? You sort of addressed it.
Yeah. So through you, Mr. Chair. So what we can do, so yeah, and I've been in positions where I've had meetings with applicants, and at a minimum, they fall back to, well, this is the building code, and at a minimum, the biggest issue I find is people like to round down. The AODA clearly states round up, so I am typically able to fight for that one extra spot. But beyond that, like you said, this is kind of our recommendation. What we can do, however, is in the matters of consideration or comments section, the consideration section, we can always add just a one-liner, and we can template it to just say, similar to the evacuation chairs and the accessible counters with hearing loops, to just have recommendation for additional spots should this be a medical building, or we can just say recommendation for 2 additional spots, and that is something that we recommend. So at a minimum, looking at it, if there's over 100 spaces, maybe we recommend 2 additional and spread them out. It's a consideration at the end of the day. They don't need to do it, but if they abide by it, then we just got 2 extra spots. So that's something that we can do, but at a minimum, the AODA does have the percentages that we should follow.
Thank you, Greg. Great suggestion, Allison. Any other comments or questions on 7.3?
I had just a quick question about the loading bays. So in like units 14 and 15, with the stairs at the back, is there a requirement for them to have an alternative exit that's also accessible? Do bays like that need a ramp as well as stairs, or do they only need the one main entrance that's at grade?
Greg?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm actually trying to find it on the map here. I know it's on the other plan. I don't know if this one had stairs. Or?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the front. Oh, they're there. Yeah, so the building code does require 1 accessible entrance or exit based on the facility. I believe there's a square footage requirement. And it's based on the number of entrances and exits. And I want to say it's 6 or 7 entrances before a second one is required around the building. And so since these are all subdivided, the one in, one out, or front and back, is just as long as one's accessible. And that's a building code requirement.
Peter?
Yeah, that was it.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that passes. Moves us along to item 7.4. Treat accessibly in Aurora. We have a mover and a seconder, please. Okay, Allison with a big smile. And Don. Okay. Greg?
Thank you. So through you, Mr. Chair. So by the smiles and the chuckles around the room, I feel like this initiative is known, but for those that are unaware, Treat Accessibly did start by the Padulo family in 2017, where the daughter had a child in her class who was in a wheelchair and did not understand why they couldn't trick or treat like all the other children. And so she wanted to start this initiative to help her classmate be able to trick or treat. And they are now in over 100,000 homes across Canada. Their goal is to over 400,000 homes across Canada, which I believe Census Canada states that there's 400,000 children across Canada, or homes with children, I should say. So that is kind of their goal. And it's basically to make a more inclusive Halloween by providing barrier-free access, creating that safe environment, sensory considerations, and understanding diverse needs of the trick-or-treaters. So little things like increased lights from what they are handing out as treats to coming down from their front porch or their front stairs onto their driveways or even to the end of their driveways to participate, to allow children the ability to still participate in trick-or-treating. So that is the background of the initiative. In terms of this, I actually found out about this in the week before trick-or-treating Halloween last year. which was a little too late to implement. So it's been on my radar, and I believe, Haley, you also emailed me about this initiative around the same time as well. So this has definitely been on our radar. We've been working on it throughout the summer. And so this week I am actually meeting with communications to have a full communication plan released, including social media releases. We're going to have a dedicated webpage for this initiative as well. Our plan, similar to the Deck the Halls event, where people sign up to put their house on a list to show their Christmas lights or their Christmas displays. We're going to also have a similar list for individuals to enter their address, which will create a map for our community members to see which houses and which subdivisions are participating. So should your subdivision that you live in not be participating, but there's one close by that has many houses participating, there would be that opportunity for people to travel here or to another subdivision. Currently, we were able to secure 150 lawn signs, as well as a children's book, which was just developed. So that has been approved, and it is a picture book, basically talking about the story behind Treat Accessibly and how it came to be. So a nice little children's book that we are going to distribute. Should we need additional signs, our local RE/MAX offices would be able to provide additional signs to us for the town. In saying that, Haunted Forest is one of the top 100 events in Ontario, where we have over 4,000 individuals that come to that event. So we will be also attending. I will be out there on Saturday, October 28th, to also educate and to promote this initiative with a few days to go. So just to get that word out there, we have not decided. I will have to meet with Shelley, our supervisor of special events, to figure out if the best place would be at Shepherd's Bush or at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex, where families do gather to do activities while waiting for the bus to travel. So we'll have to figure out where. But the signs will be available at Town Hall, at the Stronach Aurora Recreation Complex, and the Aurora Family Leisure Complex. And then any signs remaining on the 28th, which I honestly don't think there will be many or any, will be moved to the Aurora Family Leisure Complex for the Haunted Forest activities. Additionally, we will have a download where people can download the sign. It's a PDF and put it on their windows or out. And the signs can be up 1 week prior to Halloween to show community their participation. So that is the plan for this initiative, which we will be, like I said, on Friday, I have a meeting with communications, and then really in the next few weeks, we will be getting this out to our community.
Wonderful. Thanks, Greg. It's a great initiative. Any comments and questions on this item?
Me, of
Hi.
course. Oh, Haley
Okay.
first.
You want me to go?
Haley? Okay, go ahead, Haley.
Sure. I'm just wondering about the feasibility. So last year out on the news, they did an event even beforehand for individuals with different disabilities to come out, and a whole bunch of houses on the street set up something. Is there any way the town or something up that's similar to that?
Oh, Haley, you're cutting in and out.
I'm cutting in and out.
Sorry, Haley, to clarify, were you saying that other places have ran an event similar to this prior to Halloween?
Yeah, so last year on the news,
Yeah.
there was an event a couple days before where they were filming out on TV and they said there was some events happening in different communities where like a single house during the a street during the daytime was available for kids with disabilities, I guess, to also promote it in a way, but also as just an extra event for them to go to. So something to consider if we could like that, something at the community center itself.
Greg?
Yep, so I've noted that. This is our first year. I think it's a great idea. A few days prior to Halloween is Haunted Forest as well. So maybe this year, we can look at that as that event to promote. And I did make a note, and I'll chat with communications to see what we feel is easiest and best. From my understanding, chatting with Rich, who's the father of the founder, we here in Aurora are actually doing a couple of unique things that no other municipality has done, namely the map. Gathering addresses and creating that map is something that Aurora has done, as well as the province of Alberta, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's Alberta, who is also piloting this for the province to have that central location. So we are kind of spearheading a similar idea here in our small town. And Rich is actually looking to share our experience with other municipalities for that initiative. Cool. In terms of the event, Haley, to that point, we'll see again, and we might bring it up to the committee to see if we can join in and assist. And I'm one person in two different locations, so we'll see what we can do. My understanding from Rich, once those signs get up, we're going to need a few hundred more signs right away.
Great.
Allison is.
Oh, yeah.
Allison, go ahead.
I'm so excited. I have my sign. I've had it since the first year. So we always put it up. I always promote this in the local groups, which I think is a great place as well as committee members where we can just share and boost whatever the town shares. I was going to bring up the same thing about what that Haley did. And I would even suggest that it wouldn't be the accessibility committee's responsibility or even the town's necessarily to hold a street event, that perhaps as a committee member, I or Haley could talk to Rich. I know Rich from my work because he's done stuff with Holland Bloorview around this. So we actually push it out to our client families to go to that street event, because even if you give a map and I see 20 houses, I'm going to be hopeful. Let's say we see 100 houses across the town. For a family with a child with a disability, that's still not accessible for me to get in and out of a car to go to those houses, to get to enough houses. So I'm still going to stick to my neighborhood, and I'm just going to look for the signs in my neighborhood, which might only be 3 or 4. So the idea of an event is still helpful because those kids will have a trick or treat experience, get a full bag, and it's just far more accessible for a lot of kids who just, for whatever reason, can't get out on Halloween night. So I love the idea of an event, and I would say that it's not necessarily the town's responsibility to execute it. They could promote it if they can find another way to get it off the ground, and not in conflict with Shepherd's Bush, which is, I'll say, semi-accessible. And then my other point was with sign pickup, and I find this with other events with the town. And I get it, there's a physical sign that you need to put on your lawn, but with other events where wristbands have to be picked up, for me, I find as a parent with a disability, I don't drive. I can't even get to SARC during SARC hours to pick up my wristband. Like sometimes the access at town points is not accessible in itself to say, come pick up at this point. So I'm wondering in this case, if there is a way somehow to do a drop-off blitz if people need it. So have that option. If you cannot come pick up your sign, can we do a blitz where it can be delivered? And I would extend that same question to any other event we do where there's a pickup required. The mulch delivery or whatever, compost delivery, all the delivery things. I'm the organizer of my house, but I don't drive. So if travel's required, sometimes that makes things completely inaccessible. So just a comment for this and for other town initiatives.
It's a great suggestion.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure, Joanne.
I was just thinking when we were talking about the various, trying to encourage the communities. Is there any way that we can do a thing like a bag of goodies from the town or something like that for somebody that arranged it in the whole community? And maybe for like something for their children or whatever, and encourage people to sort of, win this big basket by pulling all the neighbors together and trying to get more and more neighbors to take part, And I just thought it just a bit of a competition, either that or we go to a company and see if they've got something to offer, two big bottles of wine and 4 glasses, or depending on whatever company you can get a hold of to back it up. Chartwell might do that, actually.
So through you, Mr. Chair, we can definitely look into it. I'm not sure about the bottle of wines, but we can definitely look into if there's something. Again, this is our first year, and as Allison kind of mentioned in her comment, I'm hoping all 150 signs go. I'm encouraged based on hearing from Rich of communities that have started this. Whatever they've requested, they've needed 3, 4, 5 times more shortly after launching. So I'm hopeful that we will need 500 or 600 signs, not only 150. But once we launch, I think that'll be the kind of time. This is also our first year. Once I think people see those orange signs on lawns and start asking questions from their community, from their neighbors, what does this mean? Why is this here? What is this for? From what I hear, in some neighborhoods or communities, they've gone from like 50 to 500 year after year. So it expands quite a bit. And so this is why we felt a dedicated space for this initiative, because this is something we will be communicating and running year after year, to a point of we're hoping that we can create our own branded signs, and have those, brought to you by the town of Aurora and branded ourselves, that we can distribute for our community members. So that's kind of hopefully next year or the year after's plan.
Maybe if we went for a gift type of thing, we could go for a family outing to McDonald's or something, and that would make them, the whole family be included.
So again, I have some ideas that we can do in-house, but I would definitely need to speak to the respective divisions and departments to see if they're willing to donate. But I do feel like if we can reach out to community services and they're willing to provide some options, I think that would be a good family opportunity.
Joanne, after your comment about the wine, I thought you were going to say we should have a family event at a vineyard or something.
No, I was just trying to think of something that I go out and get a lot of donations, so those are things I know that I've been given. But I'm saying that if family get together at out at McDonald's or something like that, and we can always get those people to donate. They're always wonderful about it, So. Yeah.
And Allison, to your previous comment on the accommodation for pickup, absolutely. I think I noted it. We'll put it in the communication as well. And then we'll probably set a date and a time and load up all of the signs and drive around town and drop them off one by one, whether it's me or someone else in town. But we can definitely get that done.
I have to log off, but before I do, I was just going to say, with the town signs, if you slap a sticker on with a QR code, I would suggest driving traffic to the town site and why we're participating and what our town goals are, in the absence of having town branded signs. If you put a QR code, then somebody right at my house might say, oh, what's this about? And go to the town of Aurora's site instead of the Treat Accessibility or Accessibly site.
So sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, the sign boxes do have QR codes that direct to the Treat Accessibly website directly. But my thought was exactly that. Let's redirect to our site, which we will be developing. And then from there, they can get more information from the Treat Accessibly site directly, but they got to come to us first. So that is something on my to-do list as well, to see if we can do that.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions before we call the vote? Peter.
Just make one more comment on getting that outreach as wide as possible. If you drop these signs next to every community mailbox at trailheads, that sort of thing, like, I mean, I would be happy to put a sign there where people, they come get there, they see it, they scan the QR code and they're directed to the site, rather than just on lawns and so on. Just places where people are likely to take note. So even at Shepherd's Bush before, on that poster board there, at the trailhead, that would be a great spot for it. Any other trailheads, anywhere where you can publicly post them. I guess if there are Aurora branded signs, you can put them anywhere.
Town parks.
Town parks, yeah. I would just imagine that would increase uptake like exponentially.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think great idea. I actually had a couple, I think, an are you participating with a QR code?
Yeah.
Like put the logo, put the initiative, are you participating? Well, what am I participating in? I don't know. Scan the QR code, direct to our page, and they become advertising signs. That's something I can definitely look at. We'll work with communications to create, and something relatively easy to put up around town. I'll have to work with respective departments to A, get them up, and B, keep them up. Depending on the weather, by October, parks are no longer maintained.
Yeah, I almost wonder if like a decal that sticks onto like things like community mailboxes would be better, but like I said, I would do it myself, but I think that's probably to stick things to community mailboxes. Even at stores too, where they have big stacks all the Halloween candy. Superstore or those spaces are really up one out front. Be fantastic.
So that's actually another, I'll put that as another note. In our media release, we can definitely encourage businesses in Aurora to advertise the initiative as well. So we'll put that in there and then we'll see if they take that uptake.
Great suggestions. Anyone else? Okay, let's call a vote. All those in favor?
Right.
Opposed? That carries. Brings us to 7.5, our last item. Town of Aurora multi-year accessibility plan from 2022 to 26. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Okay, Peter yeah, and Joanne. And back to you, Greg.
Okay, so with this item, I guess from our last meeting, we ran out of time to just have this roundtable. And it's just trying to think the last 3 months. But there have been a few initiatives that we've moved forward on. Treat Accessibly was a big one that we've done. Access Now and complementing our accessibility audits was another that has been completed. I think I mentioned it. So Councillor Kim, you will be seeing it at the budget process. But I did submit a request to complete the remaining 69 parks, 14 trails, and 7 facilities that were not assessed this year. We will be requesting that the rest of our town assets be completed next year through Access Now. And once that is approved, we will let them know. And then I believe it's a 8-month process, 8 or 9 month process from once they get the green light to start to the completion of all our assets uploaded and verified. And then there is a maintenance period for the following 2 years. As we already know, Town Park, I believe, is going through a large renovation with a lot of accessible features that are coming up. And as we talked about at our last meeting, we do have a couple of parks that are going to be coming on board. So that allows us to bring Access Now back in to reevaluate those spaces. The Sark Gymnasium is currently being worked on, and Shovel's ground, I think, has broken today or tomorrow. So once that space is complete, next year or two, we will have Access Now come back and reevaluate the new space there at the Aurora Recreation Complex to complement what's already there. So that is kind of the next 3-year scope of that request project. I am also working with the region on this accessibility assessment, as a lot of our trails do cross municipal borders. I am trying to work with the region to see if they can take over the trail assessments. And so I believe their Parks and Forestry team is looking into that as we speak. And then they're also looking at assessing their facilities, their physical facilities as well, which is pretty cool. Sensory tents. Haley, our last meeting, we talked about the sensory tents. I did have a meeting with special events. Canada Day was the first event that it was put out at. So we did have 2 options, I believe, at Canada Day: a sensory tent with the side walls and a space for sensory play, as well as an indoor quiet space as well. Because we were at the Family Leisure Complex, people can go upstairs and have, they set aside a room for quiet space. So that was that option. I did chat with the supervisor of special events for Ribfest, and unfortunately, due to different circumstances, that was not able to be put up at that time. That was out of our control, but it is something that will be looked at our next event, which I believe would be Haunted Forest potentially. Other than that, I mentioned earlier about the Design of Public Spaces review. So we should be seeing that, if not at our next meeting, we should be seeing that by November, which I will share with the committee. And then you would be able to go on and provide updates or commentary directly to the committee, the DOPS review committee. And I will also be reviewing it and providing my updates or my recommendations as well, should there be any. But I am also meeting with the Ontario Network of Accessibility Professionals, ONAP, at the end of October. So we will be chatting, probably over 100 of us that will be attending, different issues across the province that we will be speaking to, along with Accessibility Canada. The Ministry of Senior and Accessibility will be there, as well as a few other accessibility individuals in the industry that will be there to kind of provide us updates. So our November meeting, we probably will have a little bit more. And that's all for a multi-year accessibility plan update at this point.
Thank you, Greg. Any comments and questions for Greg? No? Okay. So I'll call the vote then. Oh, Peter?
The trails you mentioned with York region, some of could you elaborate a little sort of on some of the things they're looking at with those trail systems? Like what specific things about accessibility are being addressed?
Yep. So through you, Mr. Chair. When they do the trails, it's a little different to parks, similar, but more specific. So they do look at, again, path of travel, type of path, whether it's paved, gravel, grass, dirt, whatever the case is. Any obstructions, bushes, branches, trees, that sort of thing. So they do actually travel. I believe we have, if I recall correctly, 800 acres of parks. And I want to say close to 100 kilometers of trails through our town. So it's an extensive process, and they do travel the space and mark. So as they travel, they mark on their map, green, yellow, red. So as an individual as traveling through the map, fully accessible, partially accessible, non-accessible. So if you are, in a wheelchair or manual versus motorized, you can make those decisions as to how far you can travel on your own. If you're in a walker, and you don't have balance on gravel, that will be noted along the process. So yeah, it is much more than that, but they do look at everything kind of protruding through that path, floodplains and that sort of thing. So if there is water blocking, they'll look at that as well.
And is there an idea to have like a comprehensive map of the regions that are accessible and those that are not? So you can sort of assess where you can safely go on those trails.
That's what I was thinking too.
So through you, Mr. Chair, so it's a separate entity on their platform. So it's called Access Outdoors instead of Access Now Maps. So you can definitely look it up, but it literally is the path, where the path is, and then it's a colored line through the path. So it'll be a map of a bunch of colored lines that you'll end up seeing green, yellow, and red. So you as a path traveler can make that kind of decision. I may not enter at this side, but I may travel to this side because I know this path is accessible, whatever the case is, but it is a separate kind of process or map on Access Now's platform.
May I ask a question too on that line? If the person is like in town, let's say a person's in town and they're not hikers because they feel they have a disability or a challenge of some sort, would they be sitting back to wait is there any way we would let this knowledge out? Like, has an article ever been done on the hiking trails, even a small article, and say that they're marked in such a way that people would know that there's a possibility of going out there and doing it? Because other than going to the trails, I suppose they wouldn't know.
So through you, Mr. Chair, so once the final process is complete and the rest of our parks, trails, and facilities are updated and verified, we will have a second media release out to the public that will state that the rest of our town assets are there, and now our parks and trails are there, and this is what it looks like. So we'll give a little description as to where they can access and how they can access and what it means, what they're seeing. Currently on the accessibility webpage, we've taken down our accessibility map that we had through our GIS team, and we've replaced it with the Access Now map. So now that is updated and official and assessed and we're verified, we've kind of swapped maps. Once that happens, we'll have a second map for our parks and trails. And then on our parks and trails web pages, we will also direct to the appropriate links. So if you're looking up a certain park, you'll have all the accessible features of that park available to you on our website.
Yeah, I just thought that it would be very interesting that a person sees that and then says, they get really enthused about, well, now I can go out and do this. They probably have never known about it before. That's all.
And that is one of the mission values, visions really of Access Now, to open up the spaces for persons with disabilities to know that they can and make those decisions to say, well, I don't know, so I'm not going, versus now I know, so I can
I'll
go.
give it a try.
Yeah. And that's the same with our buildings. So currently or previously, our building said we had an accessible entrance and that was it. Well, we know our buildings have a lot more than that. And this is where I said, if our buildings are on this platform, I want them to be official and verified. And so the second part of that process is, well, let's just do this assessment with all our parks. The second part of the benefit of this, we do have a lot of our events at parks. So Town Park, we do have a lot of events at. Ripfest is at Machel Park. So we do have a lot of our Canada Day is at Lambert Wilson Park. So it allows our community to actually comment on those at those parks about the events. So if now you're looking to attend Canada Day, for example, you can look up the reviews of Lambert Wilson Park, for example, and see all the people commenting on accessibility. Because as we know, for Machel Park, we put down the Moby mats, we have additional parking spaces allocated, and there's additional accessibility that happens because of Ripfest, that if you travel to Machel Park today, that field is just a field, right? So it gives us another avenue to advertise these special events in our community and therefore open it up to individuals with disabilities to attend them as well.
Thank you.
Great. The town developing its accessibility plan. Do we try to stay within the the provincial standards, Aurora standards, or have we in the past ever gone above and beyond? Like for instance, when reading up on accessibility, there's some key opportunities for future standards development, like in the area of emergency services, in response, recreational and green spaces, which we kind of touched on this evening, wayfinding and navigation systems. I know in council, we try to not be a follower, but be a leader on various aspects. So have we considered maybe going above provincial standards? And I put these three areas as an example.
So to you, Mr. Chair, so yes, we absolutely. I would say more than half of our current multi-year accessibility plan items are above the standard. So like what we currently are doing are in a lot of places are meeting standards. This current year accessibility plan is now going that next step. And then we as a committee here, well, I guess the next term's committee, will be in process of developing the next multi-year accessibility plan, where we can further add to what we feel like. So absolutely, we can go above and beyond. Accessible Canada Act will be coming in effect. We don't know how that will change Ontario's AODA standards, because although Ontario and I want to say Alberta are the two that are trying to be fully accessible by next year, the rest of Canada has not even started yet. So by having Accessible Canada, the standards may change and raise Ontario's bar further, at which point we may have other items that we will then need to look at to just get to an Accessible Canada standard. But there are items on there, accessible scooter parking spaces, like electronic charging state. That's not a standard at all. So these are items, there are items on there that are above and beyond that we can look at. And then in saying that, if there's something we want to look at that's not on the plan, we absolutely can also do that. And that could be something the committee can provide, recommend, look into, or through you to direct it to staff to look into something that may not be on the plan. My goal at this point is to check off a lot of those boxes on the plan in the next 3 years, so that we can start as this committee to create kind of a new plan of what we want to see for the following 4 years.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else comments or questions? Okay. Call the vote then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. there's no informational items. And it brings us to new business. Anyone with new business? I'll start on the left, my monitor. John?
Nope.
No? Peter?
Nothing specific, no.
Okay. Joanne, new business?
No, that's all, thanks.
Okay, great. So with that, call a motion to.
Haley.
Got Haley.
Oh, Haley, sorry, I forgot Haley in the monitor. Haley, do you have anything for a new motion? Or sorry,
No.
new business?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, can I have a motion to adjourn? Anyone tabling that?
Haley.
John and Haley. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, we can all go home. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you,
We
Haley.
are home, yeah.